Secondary unit in the pursuit behind 11A19, identify.
A19, we're discontinued. Still westbound, I believe Broadway, coming up to approaching Verdugo.
The primary unit, identify.
Verdugo. The primary unit, I believe, is the northeast unit, 11A19, shot 005.
When we talk about gang violence, especially in LA County, where I work, we know it to be one of the most difficult areas to deal with because of the number of gang members we have out there on the street.
Gang violence in our community has reached alarming proportions. In this case, a 15-year-old boy supposedly went on a shooting rampage. This is one of the victims he left behind. While on the scene, police learn of the whereabouts of the suspect. When police arrive, the suspect barricaded himself in his house. He was considered armed and extremely dangerous. Cops proceeded to ram the front door. 2 canines were sent in to retrieve the suspect.
I work with a SWAT team, and our SWAT team will at times incorporate the use of a dog into our search. And what it does is it gives us the ability to clear one section of a house at a time. The dog will go in, clear a living room area, come back to his handler, and then we will move in. Now, some people may believe that gives us a false sense of security. It doesn't. But if an individual is there, that dog locates them, it gives us the exact spot where that person is. And tactically, we're better off in our approach to dealing with houses when we do incorporate dogs.
After the suspect is secured, the cops then have the painstaking task of gathering evidence. The missing weapon must be located. Air support spots the weapon on a ledge above the entrance of the suspect's house. What happens next is hard to watch.
Oh, fuck! Get an ambulance! Get an ambulance! Oh, fuck! Get an ambulance! Oh! Get an ambulance!
The officer was rushed to a local hospital.
Off duty. I'm very aware. I always study my environment. I always evaluate the people around me. I always look for the worst. Some people might call that paranoia. I call it preparation. I try not to put myself or my family in a situation where they're going to get injured, I'm going to get injured, they're going to get killed, I'm going to get killed. There's too much crime in America for me not to be aware of my surroundings. We find that victims are commonly victims because they don't see it coming. I don't plan on being a victim. Will I get involved in an off-duty situation? If my family's involved, I will try to avoid it as much as I can. If I'm by myself, I will probably become involved because I believe that that's my obligation. It's my obligation to help the people that are out there. It's my obligation to become more than just a witness. People will say, yeah, but you're not prepared to deal with that. You don't have your body armor, you don't have additional bullets, you don't have the radio to ask for help. It's reached a point now where somebody needs my help. I can't look to those other things. I can't let that interfere with me stepping in and doing what is right. And if ultimately I'm injured, then I'm injured. And I don't want that to happen, but it's still my obligation to help those people.
As an off-duty officer sits outside, two men enter this Starbucks with guns.
Apparently, two masked men walked into the Starbucks for the purpose of committing a robbery. Both were armed. Both, as I said, were wearing ski masks. And this little episode was witnessed by an off-duty officer who was having coffee out front himself.
Well, I noticed a couple guys walking to Starbucks with masks over their face, knit masks, carrying a black bag. Well, evidently they had ordered the patrons inside the Starbucks to the back, and they followed them to the back room.
At that particular time, he called in the robbery in progress. The suspects were inside. They corralled all the customers and the employees towards the rear of the store, at which time they then robbed the store.
Well, as I was on the phone to the watch commander here at North Hollywood Station, the suspects were ready to exit by that time, and they did exit the store. They removed their masks and started walking away.
They were followed by the off-duty officer, who had then drew down with his weapon on one of the suspects and told him to freeze.
One suspect gives up without incident. The other decides to run and hide.
Canines in the area of law enforcement are invaluable. They do many tasks that are dangerous, yet spare police officers from having to confront those dangerous situations, at least without some prior warning. Meaning that the dog enters, the dog will locate, and we have an idea where the suspect is at, making it less dangerous for us to go after him.
Found under a dumpster, the suspect refused to come out. The canine unit was called in to persuade the suspect to give up.
We have both suspects in custody, both guns in custody. We also have the loot in custody, and no injuries to anybody.
Every day, new technology is being developed to save lives. Here, during a high-speed chase, an officer deploys a stop stick. As soon as he lays it across the road, the driver of a suspected stolen vehicle runs directly over the stop stick. As officers avoid the stop stick, the suspect unsuccessfully attempts to maneuver around a corner. His tires were completely ripped from the rim as the suspect attempted to flee.
Clear to sign off from Michigan. Position where you get signed. Signal 4, DUI 16 called in as we move on. Yes, they take that. You were the one that got him out that he hit.
Are SWAT officers in a dangerous job? Yeah, we absolutely are. We're called on to face probably the most violent situations that police officers have to face. We're thrust into a problem that has escalated far beyond what the normal patrol officer can handle. We now face barricaded situations where the patrol officer doesn't have the tools to get into that location. We face situations where if that individual doesn't give up, ultimately we're going to have to go in and get that bad guy. Ultimately we're going to have to breach that door. We're going to have to confront that individual. So it's definitely a highly dangerous job to be in.
Police responded to a domestic dispute call. The suspect barricaded himself in his house with his common-law wife. As the officer approaches the door, he is shot. Able to make it back to his car, he calls for backup.
Working SWAT's a unique assignment. It has its advantages, but it has many disadvantages. Probably the disadvantage is being that day after day you confront highly dangerous situations. Our ability, though, to neutralize those dangerous situations is very high.
Night becomes day while the SWAT team plans their entry. Armed with only a steel hammer and a mirror to look around corners, this SWAT member plans to enter the rear of the house. Then something goes terribly wrong. Shots ring out. Appearing from the house, the wounded warrior calmly relays information to his fellow officers. Then all hell breaks loose. The ambulance arrives to treat the wounded officer.
Stop! Stop! Stop!
Then straight from the pages of a Hollywood script, the wounded officer walks towards the ambulance, joking and laughing.
Phone rang this morning. I knew it was going to be a bad day. Get back! Get off the street right now!
Get back! You get in the house! Hurry up!
Keep going!
Hurry up! Get in the house!
Get out the street! Come on, party down! Hurry up!
He was shot once in the chest and once in the head.
Is he stable?
We talk about a police officer being shot in the line of duty. What response do we have as police officers? First of all, if you're at the scene and a friend of yours or a partner of yours is shot, it's traumatic. The adrenaline flows. You want to help your partner. You want to make sure the bad guy is apprehended. I had a personal story where a partner of mine was shot, and I recall him reaching up, grabbing the front of my uniform, his eyes piercing into mine and begging me to make the pain go away. For me, not to become emotional, seeing my partner, an individual that I care deeply about, in that type of pain is tough to deal with. I've also had the misfortune to look at partners of mine in a casket, face up, in their uniform, and next to a family member being killed. It's probably one of the most emotional things I've ever been through.
Canine officers serve and protect fellow officers as well as the public.
The area of canines and law enforcement is an interesting area. And it's funny that you mentioned relationships of dogs. I have to tell you a quick story, and that's of a friend of mine who was a canine handler in Southern California area. Whenever I'd run into him, it was interesting that as he pulled his wallet out, the first thing he showed me was not the picture of his wife and his kids, but of his current canine. It was a Rottweiler, and he was very proud of it. So relationships between canine handlers and their dogs are special.
During a burglary, this canine was stabbed. As his partner apprehended the suspect. Rushed to the nearest vet, the dog struggled to hold on. His partner emotionally talks to him, trying to comfort him. Other canine units arrive to give blood if necessary. As the canine gasps one last breath, the officer begs him to fight. But his injuries were too severe. The officer loses his partner and his best friend.
Police pursuits. There is an inherent amount of danger involved with any pursuit that a police officer is involved in.
This pursuit went on for over 1 hour. The suspect rammed a police car off the road.
Secondary unit in the pursuit behind 11A19, identify.
A19 were discontinued. Still west on, I believe, Broadway, coming up to approaching Verdugo.
West on Broadway, approaching Verdugo. Primary unit, identify.
Verdugo. The primary unit, I believe, is the northeast unit, 11A19, shot 005.
West on Wilson, approaching Verdugo.
19 is being discontinued.
11A19 is discontinued from the pursuit. Primary unit in the pursuit, identify.
The end of pursuits can be extremely emotional for those officers involved, in that the officers had the opportunity to observe this individual drive at high rates of speed through city streets, endangering the public, also endangering the officers who are chasing him.
Police finally catch up with him. After a failed attempt to run, the suspect begins to fight police. Already charged up with adrenaline from the chase, cops quickly contain the suspect. He begins to plead for help from the same officers that he put in danger.
Help me! Help me! Help me! Turn down! No! Where's my rib?
I think he's pulling into Glendale PD.
No! Help me! Help me! Help me! Turn down! I plead the Glendale Police Department to help me! I plead the Glendale Police Department to help me, please! I came to Glendale so they wouldn't do this to me! Please, I plead for Glendale Police Department to help me. I turned myself into Glendale. Help me.
Guys, just back up here out of the street. We don't want you to be a hazard. Come on.
Please help me. ambulance. Oh, please.
Some people will say that the crime is diminishing in America, that there are slight decreases in crime. I would evaluate that as standing in front of a hurricane and having somebody tell me that the hurricane has diminished 10 miles an hour. It's still damaging, it's still going to take my house, it's going to still take my life. I know that police officers have a dangerous job. We suffer 60,000 police officers being assaulted each year on the average. We lose on the average around 80 peace officers each year throughout the United States. It's a dangerous job. Are we truly warriors? I would answer that by saying yes. I see my heroes, people I have the opportunity to ride in a radio car with, go out and face some of the worst predators that this earth has to throw up against us.